Coming up next on the voice of Alabama politics, the tax man cometh. Also, the V-Team takes a look at Troopergate. And Speaker Mike Hubbard says he has a right to lobby. Yeah, just like Jesse James had a right to rob trains. All this and much, much more coming up next on The V.
The voice of Alabama politics. With your host, Bill Britt. And the V-Team with Claire Austin, Susan Britt, Jack Campbell, Baron Coleman, Charlana Spencer, and special reports with Jonathan Barbie. Now, the #1 political show in Alabama, The V.
Welcome to the voice of Alabama politics, where we tackle the tough issues so you have the hard facts. I'm your host, Bill Britt, and as always, I'm joined by the V-Team. Welcome all.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I don't know when it's been crazier in Montgomery. Second special session, the Republicans are passing, at least in the House, taxes. Just never thought we would see a day, Claire, when Republicans would be passing all these taxes. Did you?
Well, in theory, that's what one would think. But, since the last 4 months and we got out of session, I mean, we've had the governor who's been wanting to raise taxes, and then the Speaker of the House is committed to raising taxes. But it is very ironic, considering that he ran on no taxes. They all did, and now they're wanting to raise the taxes. But the Senate is having a different flavor of this and a different mindset. I think they understand how the voters of this state are going to react if they start raising all these taxes.
Jack, what do you make of a candidate like Connie Rowe, who you helped with her campaign, all of a sudden coming out for sponsoring these taxes?
Sometimes I think I live on Mars when I look at all this. You know, Republicans for time immemorial have been anti-tax. And this crowd has had an opportunity to allow the people to vote on a lottery or gambling or, other revenue enhancement issues. But they keep turning their backs on that and resort to taxes, the very thing our party has just fought for forever. And when you hear someone like Connie Rowe brag, as I saw her last night at a restaurant, or Thursday night at a restaurant, where she said she was very proud of the fact that she had sponsored and passed a cigarette tax. And I'm thinking, is she a Republican? It's just foreign to me.
Well, it's even more funny that you sit here and talk about this. I had one Democratic legislator who said he was not coming this week because he already had some other commitments, but he said, now you just keep me in touch and let me know about all those taxes those Republicans are passing. I'm a Democrat and I should be able to pass taxes, but I'm not going to vote for any of these taxes. I've got somebody to make sure they vote no on every tax measure with my machine.
Well, Susan, isn't that what we're seeing? The Democrats are going, no new taxes. And the House Republicans are going, bring them on, baby.
Well, to fairness, not all House Republicans.
Okay, there's about 5 or 10.
Well, about 8, well, maybe about 12 stalwart good Republicans and even some freshmen, thank goodness, that can look beyond this special session and have the fortitude to be their own leader and have good judgment, not follow the pack of wolves.
I agree.
Yeah, and I think what the Democrats are actually doing is saying, listen, big boys, you want to pass taxes? It's on you this time. It's not on us. You're not going to label us with this. If you want this, it's all yours.
Well, there's one Democrat, female Democrat, Elaine Beach.
Elaine Beach is just compromised, but Ed Henry, Jim Carnes, of course. Jim's been a solid Republican for years.
Tim Wadsworth,
new guy. Will
Ainsworth.
They're good guys. They know, they see the handwriting on the wall. And as a consultant, I'm kind of salivating about 2018.
Oh, isn't it looking beautiful?
All these Republicans who ran on the platform of being conservative and a good steward of the taxpayers.
Right.
They're going to have some tough opponents to beat.
They're also going to have it hanging around their neck. Yeah, and you were following Mike Hubbard when you already knew he was a criminal.
Well, and this is another very interesting thing, as we were talking about this morning before we taped, is, all this has happened in the House this week, And what happens if they get to the Senate and they start filibustering? The Senate never takes a vote on any of these taxes.
Right.
Then all these House members that the Speaker has led down the path of disaster, I mean, they've all taken hard votes, not only in committee meetings, but on the floor.
Yep.
And then the Senate members a little bit more intelligent in their mindset, thinking, I know that I'm not going to vote for these taxes.
Right. In fact, Jack, didn't you guys, I think, ran a poll, or somebody related to you ran a poll on the cigarette tax itself, where 80% of the people were for the cigarette tax, but when you asked those 80%, 70% said they'd hold it against their legislator next election.
Yeah, it's kind of a paradox.
You know, I was kind of why it wasn't. If you're going to do it, why don't you make it, you know, $1 a pack? She, well, we had a hard time enough getting 25 cents.
Well, you know, the interesting thing on the cigarette tax, though, 37 states since 2009 has raised the cigarette tax. Only 4 of them have seen the revenue that was predicted. I mean, it's fallen way short. 60% of the taxes passed, the money that they expect to get out of the House, is cigarette tax. No one else has gotten it. But, you know, the Senate has been different. And who knows? Do you get a feel of what's going on up there? Because I'm not sure.
I think it's very splintered. I mean, you've got a lot, there's nobody herding the crowd up there. You've got a lot of different splinters, and I'd be surprised if they end up voting on all those
They may
taxes.
be having too much fun watching the House fall to pieces.
Well,
The House of Cards may be falling to pieces.
there was some nice little jousting up there. You know, Sanford tried to get through his his package where it's the 78-22. Susan, you were there for some of that.
I was. He's trying to get the 78-22 out of the rolling reserve. Well, Senator Dial wasn't having any of it. And what this was actually future monies. It's not monies that are currently going to the education trust fund. Those would basically be frozen. These are future monies. But the Senate was just not hearing it. I mean, he argued for 2 hours, and they just not interested.
Well, and I like both those guys. I wouldn't want to go to head with Dial because he'll procedurally catch up. But Sanford did a good job. He had a pretty good plan. It made some sense. I tell you, Jack, one of the things that did not, I mean, maybe it makes sense, but, you know, if the late night folks, if the late night folks get a hold of this, Jack Williams has proposed a tax, a porn tax, Jack.
Well,
Whoever thought Alabama would have a porn tax?
well, you know, whoever thought Jack Williams would be in the House? I mean, but if anybody is, you know, pretty tight with the porn industry, it's probably Jack Williams.
I mean, it's just crazy, though. I mean, really, he's wanting to put an excise tax on strip clubs. And, you know, if you buy a Playboy, I guess it is. I mean, it's just so embarrassing to me. I mean, we don't even have a whole bunch of strip clubs in this state, do we?
Internet viewing, internet downloads.
Well, they should tax the internet because, from my understanding, that's where most of this goes on. Ask Ashley Madison and all her sign up.
Yeah, really.
I mean,
Well, the internet's killed gay bars, that's for sure. People can pick up online instead of going out.
Oh, God. I should have brought up the porn tax. They're just having too much fun with that. But it seems like at a time when you've got serious problems, this just seemed like a delirious idea. I mean,
well, maybe he thought they don't have a lobbyist. They don't have anybody here on the ground. However, he may have gotten a client for one of his close friends. I don't know. But they just thought that would be somebody that could go
Well,
after.
I mean, what is Jack going to tax next? Candy? Honey? I mean,
we're going to have to leave it right there. Honey and candy, taxes are coming after you. We'll be right back with the voice of Alabama politics.
The V is sponsored by Spot On Strategies Group.
Sadly, this happens too often in families with autistic children.
First nightmare, their child wanders off, disappears, and is nowhere to be found.
Where her body was found just a couple hours ago.
An autistic boy wanders away from home and dies.
Welcome back to the V, the voice of Alabama politics. Overtime pay for former state trooper, chief of protective services, Wendell Ray Lewis, has been questioned in the media as if there was some connection with his overtime pay and these rumored of affairs in the governor's office. Susan, we filed a FOIA request for all these records. We received 1,800 pages. What did you find out?
This is blown completely out of proportion. This is right in line with other administrations. Let's say 2014, Wendell Ray Lewis, he made $48,000 in overtime. John Taylor under the Riley administration in 2010 made $50,000. Ronald Hayden under the Riley administration, $52,654 in 2004. Once you adjust for inflation, it's all about the same.
Well, they're not going to report the fact that Riley's troopers made almost the exact same overtime as Governor Bentley's. And then, really, when you look at it, when you go from 2014 to 2010, basically, between their head guys, there's only $10,000 difference.
Yeah.
I mean, and you take 4 years of inflation. I'm sorry, that's not a story.
And I think
thank y'all for bringing it to the forefront and getting this out.
I mean, I think Lewis averaged like something around 14, 15 hours overtime a week. Now, when you think about somebody that's caring for your life, you want to make sure that you're close to this person, you can trust this person. You're certainly not going to want to run shifts.
Yeah, well, they've drugged this guy through the ringer.
Yeah.
They drugged the Bentleys through the ringer over a story that all you had to do was send a FOIA request to Spencer Collier's office, secretary.
That would require work. I mean,
they have to pick up the phone.
Well, being governor is not a 9-to-5 job.
No,
and if you're
it's 7
protecting
days
the
a
governor,
week.
all these events he has at night, on the weekends, and naturally you're going to draw overtime pay. If you're the person assigned to the governor to protect him, you're going to go where he goes, and it's not a 9-to-5 deal.
Take an example. The first, 2 years, think about the tornadoes.
Yeah.
I mean, those people are around the clock working. That's just part of the deal. And you go all the way down to Siegelman. I mean, all of the overtime, all the pay is pretty much in sync. And I think it's egregious that they did this story like this without going to the Department of Public Safety and get the actual numbers.
They did the story, and then they brought it up again once this rumor came out.
Well, the other thing they did is they said he got a promotion that he didn't deserve. We went to the personnel board. What did they tell us, Susan?
They told us that he was actually a lieutenant before he took the job. When he went to work for the governor, he had to step down, take a leave of rank, and serve in that. But once he served in that position for 5 years, I think it is, he's eligible to go back up to his rank of lieutenant. Why wouldn't he take that promotion?
Yeah, right.
I mean, it's just one of those things. They started that new division.
They just leave a lot of the mere facts out of the story.
Well,
and that's crucial.
I mean, I'm looking at the code right here.
We picked up the phone, called the personnel department, and said, under what statute did Lewis get his promotion? They rattled it off and said, would you like for us to send you a link?
Well, it's just unfair for the trooper, Mr. Lewis, and it's unfair to the Bentleys when they're in sync and in line with everything. And I just hope that people out across the state of Alabama will read what y'all have written and that they'll do their own homework and don't just believe somebody that does a halfway story.
Well, it's just this feeding frenzy. I mean, this controversy is not dying down anytime soon, just like the flag controversy, Jack, has not died down. They filed a lawsuit against Governor Bentley saying put the flags back up, that he removed them illegally. That's been tossed out. Now I hear they're filing an appeal.
Well, I was not, I'm a good Southern guy, grew up in Alabama, have roots here. I didn't get all sizzled up about the removal of the flag from the Capitol and other state buildings. I do have a problem personally with removing them from statues that memorialize the dead. I'm sorry, but That's part of history. But taking them from rest areas and, the Capitol, and that's fine with me.
Well, I understand why it's offensive to some people, and unfortunately, if we try to stop offending everybody, we're just going to end up offending ourselves, right, Claire?
That's right. Of course, I being a good Southern girl, I kind of think it's our history and our heritage, but that's okay. I mean, I'm helping the economy. They're selling out of flags left and right. I, of course, went and bought 3 to leave to my children later in life where they can remember their heritage because it won't be anywhere in Alabama.
Well, taking down the monuments, another thing. I mean, look, this is America. We can agree to disagree. We'll fight it out in court and see what happens.
And if we have to, let's take the battle flag away and put the normal Confederate flag up.
That's correct.
There are 3 of those.
Which is not as offensive.
Right. And there's always a tipping point. I don't know where we're at in the middle of that, but I didn't like the fact that the governor just did it unilaterally. He should have gone out there and taken it down ceremoniously if he was going to, maybe giving it to the Daughters of the Confederacy, showed respect. I was offended at how they manhandled it.
I think there just wasn't a lot of real thought into it, and he was pressured with another session coming up and other things going on. It just really wasn't thought out, I think.
Well, something else that does not seem to be being thought out, according to Coach Dye, your guy. The governor, Coach Dye, came out again this week and said the solution to the budget problems are staring the legislators in the face, and they refuse to see it. War Eagle. What do you think, Claire?
Hey, you gotta say hey.
Hey. Well, I mean, he is committed to this whole gaming and the jobs for Alabama, and I understand where he comes from. And as we know, I mean, they're not interested in dealing with this whole gaming entity during this particular special session.
What's bad is Milton McGregor has operated in good faith at Victoryland, yet Green Track remains open. I don't know if somebody doesn't have the huevos to go shut them down and stir up the hornet's nest over there, but there's all these jobs that were lost in Macon County, one of the most impoverished counties in the state, and I just think Milton McGregor's gotten the short end of the stick.
Well, no doubt they proved that in Shashie's court, that Milton has been shut down while the Porch Creek were allowed to operate, Green Track was allowed to operate. All this is going on. But, Susan, if Shashie would just rule, the 11th Circuit ruled on the Indians, and that's off the table now.
That's off the table now.
We have gambling in Alabama with the Indians, and it'll never go away.
Well, and that, maybe I shouldn't say this, but you know what? These judges are put on the bench, and they're put on the benches to make hard, tough decisions. And you don't need to backpedal and try to do something that doesn't answer it. I mean, Judge Shashie, a friend of mine, but he needs to rule and make a decision.
Well, he's drawn an opponent, and it may.
Well, right.
This
and
may
that's
be
probably
an issue.
why he's probably not wanting to come out and
Better
rule.
not dilly-dally around on this.
I think that's absolutely why he's drawn an opponent. And, I mean, the 11th Circuit gave him cover on this to go ahead and say it's okay for everybody.
Well,
it's okay to do this.
If Joe Hubbard gets after him, it could go bad. Joe's a tough campaigner.
And Joe can raise a lot of money.
Yeah, well, I can imagine. We're going to have to leave it right there. You're watching The V. Come on back with us after this commercial break. We got some really good news.
Sadly, this happens too often in families with autistic children.
Worst nightmare, their child wanders off, disappears, and is nowhere to be found.
Where her body was found just a couple hours ago.
An autistic boy wanders away from home and dies.
Welcome back to The V, the voice of Alabama politics. We were talking about this a minute ago. I wanted to come back to it. And I think all of us are getting pretty tired of the rumor reporting mill. We have seen reports coming out of the media, and Claire, I know you've seen them too, and they're just salacious, and they're not based on any facts.
That's the problem I have. They don't back it up with facts.
I mean, Susan Josh Moon came out last week and just tore into bloggers and
especially AL.com. Especially AL.com.
Josh Moon with the Montgomery Advertiser.
Who is not one for rumor mongering. But he pointed out that, yes, a reporter may try to submit something like Alita Gore did, that's very salacious, but it's the editor's job to get it stopped before it gets out there. It's not just on the writer, it's on the editor. If you don't have facts, you're not printing a story, you're printing a rumor. And she went so far as to say sources said, not State House sources, not sources within the governor's office. She quoted Facebook. Facebook
source.
That could be somebody late night drinking and typing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Even Newsweek used to say an unnamed source within the administration,
right, exactly,
within the Attorney General's office.
I just think a lot of the reporting has just gotten very sloppy, and it's
lazy.
And it's dangerous and hurtful to people.
Well, everything that we've seen that was fact. How much money was spent here, how much money was raised there, all these things, who was on the flight where. We've had that for months. That's just stuff you track in the normal course of doing business. But none of it points to these rumors.
And when you look at the money, take the next step. See how it was spent. Was it spent on her yacht, or was it spent on advertising buys? Don't just get the one number and hang it there and don't do the follow-up question.
Right. Well, and I don't know who's behind this.
Well, wait a minute. Think about it. Sure, do you think there could be a big overall picture and a plan that has to do with something else later on? They might want to muddy up the waters and try to make the sitting governor look bad to make themselves look bad?
No, surely not.
You don't think so? You don't think that something with Lee County has anything to do with it?
Not a bit. Not a bit.
Well, it's just outrageous. And then you got on top of that, you got Ed Henry and Alan Farley, bless their heart, they didn't vote for any taxes. But both of them were on the stage with Mike Hubbard, cheering him on after he was arrested for 23 felonies. And now they're calling for the governor to be investigated.
Well, it does make you wonder when two of the speaker's most trusted lieutenants, who were at his pep rally after he was indicted
and arrested,
and yes, who would come out publicly and say the governor needs to be investigated. Now, do you believe they did that on their own? I would say that Mark White perhaps wrote their statements.
I would find it very hard to believe that those two gentlemen or legislators, whatever you want to call them, did it.
Let's
on
not
their
throw
own.
around that word gentleman too loosely.
Well, but interestingly, Ed Henry, to his credit, has kind of veered away the special session on taxes.
I think they both have, but you know what? They probably worked a deal. They're probably getting a kitchen pass because they did this, and they said, we don't want to vote on taxes, so they cut a deal.
Yeah.
I'll do this if you'll give me this pass.
In Alabama politics, it usually is, hey, look over here. I'm getting something over here. Well, just this faux outrage just got to, they stood there while they called Luther Strange, the Attorney General, practicing Chicago-style gutter politics. Luther Strange.
That was a congressman who said that.
Yeah, he said that. They stood there while
they were
it was
with
said.
him.
That's just below the belt. I mean, that's
I think so. I mean, Luther Strange has proven himself to be a good public servant and not one of these, good old boy politicians.
Well, he and his crowd in the Office of Attorney General are following the rule of the law.
Yeah.
And those people that were working in the Attorney General's office that were leaking out information and trying to help Mike and his lawyers, they're now gone.
Out. And I tell you, I heard the other day that Alice Martin has visited every person in the Attorney General's office and sat down with them. Now, if that's true, that's a real manager. I mean, that's
170 plus employees.
Yeah, and she sat with everybody.
I like Alice Martin. I think she's going to be real good.
Oh, I'm so excited.
Yeah.
I can see her doing that. I mean, it makes sense.
Yeah. I tell you, one of the most outrageous things of the week was on Friday, they released the filing by Mike Hubbard where he challenged the constitutionality of the state ethics
Now,
law.
these were the documents that were
Sealed.
unsealed, that became unsealed.
It's Christmas in September.
180 pages. They were sealed because they said there was grand jury information in there. The judge said, strike out the grand jury information and let them go. Susan, what did we learn?
We want to hear it. I want to hear it word for word.
Well, it appears that Speaker Hubbard is claiming that he has a constitutional right as a citizen legislator to lobby the legislature.
Those are the words on page 31. He says, I have a right to lobby even though I'm sitting in the legislature. Claire, have you
That
ever
is
heard anything?
egregious. I'm sorry. There's nothing more. I've never known a speaker to be a contract lobbyist.
But he says it's okay, Jack, for him to lobby for his clients.
Mm-hmm. He said a lot of things that he thought were okay that are running afoul of the law.
Like 23 of them.
Yeah.
Okay, now, isn't there another little interesting twist that during this session,
This week, in
this
fact.
past
Yeah.
week that we were in session, that he's gotten one of his underlings,
Yeah,
friends,
yeah, Jack
to introduce a
Williams.
bill
Jack
that had
Williams.
some little detail in there that would make this legal?
Yeah, he did. Jack Williams introduced the
Star
bill.
of the week.
Porn King?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, star of the week, apparently, for Mike Hubbard.
Released the bill, and it passed out of the House that would have made what Hubbard said is legal.
Do you think that the majority of these House members that voted on that bill had any idea what they were doing
I
when
don't
they
think
voted
they
on
have
that
any
bill?
idea whatsoever.
It was buried in the bill. It was buried.
Well,
And
we
this is the
know.
same bill that he sponsored that allows legislators to establish a legal defense fund and take money year round.
Right,
Yeah, whether
right.
they're in session or not.
Ludicrous.
So basically, you can just go and buy your bill, as long as it's in the legal
I tell
defense
you, one
fund.
of the things that
Well,
I
surely our Alabama Senate, with the leadership in there and with a lot of those good men and women, they are going to put the microscope on this House Bill 18, I believe.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's just amazing that Hubbard, who championed the ethics laws, now says that they were wrong. He has a right to lobby. I thought as a public servant, you put aside your individual game.
You're supposed to, and that's why you have to disclose your income, your stocks. You have to. That is all part of being in public office. They do it in Congress and everywhere else.
Well,
He's just trying to change the ball game now that he has been indicted on 23 charges and he's broken all the laws. Now he's trying to make them legal.
We're going to have to leave it right there. You've been watching The V, the voice of Alabama politics. You can catch news stories every day at alreporter.com. Like us on Facebook, watch us on YouTube, or of course, every Sunday in your home. Thank you for watching.